With WCW last week drawing its most watched Nitro in a year, the company decided to go all out in hopes of capitalizing on its second straight unopposed Monday, heavily hyping during the week a huge main event involving every available top star in the company in a triple cage war games match for the title built as Russo's Revenge, debuting the massive structure on television for the first time that was originally built for the Ready to Rumble movie and was only used once in April, as with Russo himself set to work the match on the heel team of Nash, Steiner and Jarrett. Last Monday during the in-ring segment of Russo, Vito and Goldberg, Russo reportedly suffered another major blow from Vito's shots, with him again suffering from concussion symptoms during the week, coming after already being injured during the Ric Flair cage match in June that ended up with him taken off the road with headaches and blurred vision. With Russo, despite more potential damage coming tonight in a wild cage match, continuing to work through it, knowing the big opportunity the company has to build momentum going unopposed on the way to Raw's September 25th TNN debut. Russo came out to hype the main event, explaining the rules while listing both heel and babyface teams, with change in the rules of the winner being the first one to escape with the belt in the bottom cage, putting obstacles for the babyface team with each one having to win qualifying matches, while adding more hype to the match, saying that for one night only he will waive the non-physicality clause between him and Goldberg to build to Goldberg getting him in the cage, bringing out Nash turning against Russo for putting his belt on the line tonight, with Russo and Nash taking shots back and forth, leading to Sting followed by the rest of the War Games participants coming out to preview the match with a brawl all over the cage, with this segment bumping Nitro over 900,000 viewers to a 3.3 rating already in the second quarter. As promised, after losing the bet to Vince Russo last week with the first quarter on Nitro opening with a 2.6 rating, Jeremy Borash had his head shaved on the air while in return getting the biggest opportunity of his career to date, as with the stipulation originally set for Borash to shave his head while getting to call a match on the Nitro broadcast for the first time. Regular announcer Scott Hudson had a family emergency hours before the show went on the air to lead to Borash getting a massive chance with the decision to let him join Tony and Madden on the commentary table for the entire 2 hours, as with Borash, in addition to hosting the WCW internet shows on the company website, invited by Russo to sit in production meetings on Wednesdays and Thursdays with Ed Ferrara, detailing the current creative process in the company in an interview with Borash during the week, saying that Russo writes the entire Nitro script after the Wednesday meeting before sending it to Ferrara, who writes the full Thunder script over the next day, before the final creative meeting to suggest ideas and finalize the shows. Nitro climbed to a 3.4 rating to close the first hour, having Sting and Booker's qualifier matches going over Vampiro and Stevie Ray to advance to the main event, with the third qualifying match seeing Cat being booked by Russo in a handicap match against Kronik after being attacked by the Harris brothers in a bar before returning to the building, with them going over to instead take his place in the War Games match. After answering an open challenge last week to quickly take him out, Goldberg's qualifying match was booked against Shane Douglas, this time in an official match, being placed in the major time slot at 9 p.m. to potentially hook regular Raw viewers who switch channels after seeing that Raw is not on the air, in a formula that last week saw the Booker vs. Nash title match spiking big with over 1 million viewers, with the Goldberg vs. Douglas match going 4 minutes at the top of the hour to gain over 500,000 viewers to a 3.7 rating. ending up with Goldberg going over after also taking out the entire Thrillers group to set up the hyped Goldberg-Russo confrontation in the cage in less than an hour. With next week's Nitro coming from Charlotte, North Carolina with a David Flair-Stacy Keibler wedding advertised for the show, Arn Anderson all but confirmed the TV return of Ric Flair set for next Monday, as with WCW already looking to carry the momentum from the past 2 weeks and with Raw just coming back to its 9 p.m. time slot for the first time since August 21st. Two major proven rating attractions, with one being Ric Flair and the second being the wedding concept, combined with the reformed heel group of Russo, Nash, Steiner and Jarrett against Goldberg, Sting and Booker, would lead to the most optimistic expectations for WCW on an opposed night against Raw in months, while on the night the second hour of Nitro between 9 to 10 p.m. faced the US Open, which preempted Raw on the USA Network, drawing a 1.5 rating, being almost tripled by Nitro's 4 rating head-to-head. As with the War Games cage match set to go along with separate entrances, Nitro had a Vito vs. Natural Born Thrillers gauntlet match going 3 minutes, followed by 2 commercial breaks in a short span just before the main event. The entrances for the main event took place at 9:40 p.m. with a 20-minute commercial-free block set to end the broadcast, going 19 minutes in the longest match on Nitro since the Bret Hart vs. Chris Benoit Owen tribute match last October, seeing Jarrett and Sting as the first two out, followed by Steiner, Kronik, Russo, Nash and Booker, with Goldberg saved for the last entrance, as the big star power match in one of the biggest spectacles in show history proved to be a huge success, setting several rating and viewership milestones for WCW in over a year, jumping huge with over 1.4 million viewers to a big 4.8 rating, making it the joint highest rated quarter on the WCW broadcast since close to its peak period in April 1999, and furthermore, although Raw had the disadvantage of starting 2 hours later, the 4.8 rating for the Triple Cage War Games outdrew any segment on the Raw broadcast to make it the first time WCW had the highest rated segment when both shows aired on the same night since August, with the match strategically booked to several stages, ending up with Goldberg breaking the handcuffs and taking out Nash, Steiner and Jarrett before finally getting to Russo, having the match won until Bret Hart made a surprise return to cost him the title just as Nash and Russo revealed the swerve of them working together to lead to Nash retaining, with the match in the loaded show in general driving Nitro to its highest rated and most watched show in a year with a 3.6 rating overall, even going against strong competition on the night coming on a holiday weekend and the first week of the NFL season, with the company now showing signs of positive momentum looking at next week as the big test of how much of the big additional audience WCW would be able to retain, with head-to-head competition resuming next Monday. Coming off its 2 most watched TV shows in a year, including drawing its joint highest rated quarter since April '99 last Monday with a 4.8 rating for the War Games cage match, WCW, looking to build on the momentum of the past 2 weeks, had 2 of the most proven rating attractions in the business, with a wedding segment announced for tonight and Ric Flair's TV return after 3 months out for the David Flair wedding in his hometown of Charlotte, North Carolina, leading to the most optimistic predictions for Nitro on a competitive Monday night in months, as along with the Flair return the company loaded up the show with a promoted Nash vs Steiner title match for the main event and the final build-up to the two top matches for the Fall Brawl pay-per-view on Sunday with Goldberg vs Steiner and Booker vs Nash for the title. As Nitro with a Filthy Animals vs Chronic Tag Titles match, opened strong from the start with a 2.8 rating, its highest rated opening quarter since June. With Eric Bischoff not seen since the Hogan-Russo Bash at the Beach incident, Eric in an interview during the week confirmed that he's working for WCW but not on the television product, responding to claims that he's heading a group to buy the company, saying that he met with Brad Siegel but it had nothing to do with any deal to buy WCW, with Russo in a production meeting in the office on Friday allegedly responding to Eric's claims, insinuating that he was negotiating to buy the company since April and as a result wasn't fully committed to increase numbers. Nitro continued to climb in every quarter during the first hour, peaking with a 4.1 rating between 8:45 to 9 p.m. featuring a Nash and Steiner skit going over the finish of their match tonight, with Nash suggesting Steiner to lay down in a similar finish to the talked-about Hogan match at the Georgia Dome, followed by Jim Duggan coming out for a promo announcing his retirement from wrestling just before the top of the hour, with Nitro's overall first hour showing a massive increased interest as indication of the past 2 weeks getting more viewers to sample the product and return on the night, with the hour averaging a 3.4 rating with a big increase in viewers per home totaling over 4.6 million viewers, making it the most watched hour of WCW television since the first hour on September 27, 1999. On a night that was also Russo's final Raw in person as the WWF head writer. With the expectation that the company would place the David Stacey wedding segment with Rick's return when Raw goes on the air for the first time in 3 weeks at 9 p.m., Nitro instead crossed over the top of the hour with the end of the Doug and Storm segment followed by a Storm vs Morris match going 3 minutes, with the wedding starting in the second half of the quarter with Foley and Rock already in the ring on Raw, eventually bringing out Ric Flair at 9:13 p.m. to a big ovation from the Charlotte crowd, with the first quarter drawing a 3.1 rating, one of the top 3 highest rated opposed opening quarters of the year. On the first night of 2 sold-out shows in the same building, with the America West Arena in Phoenix selling out in less than an hour, leading to the company booking the SmackDown taping tomorrow in the same venue, which also sold out almost immediately with over 30,000 people in back-to-back nights in the same market. Mick Foley opened Raw for the follow-up of SmackDown, which saw Steve Austin announcing his return at the Unforgiven pay-per-view in a taped promo from his home in Texas, with Foley starting the investigation on the way to the event, calling out the car driver to reveal himself to bring out Rock to the ring, to a massive reaction, teasing a heel turn before shutting down Foley's questioning to establish that he didn't run over Austin, saying that he already gave his word to the cops the night after Survivor Series last year while hyping Austin's return on the pay-per-view, turning to his own business, cutting a promo on Kane, calling him out either for tonight or for Unforgiven to bring out Chris Benoit, saying that he should be the #1 contender, followed by Kane and Taker to start a 4-way brawl, which also saw Kane taking out Foley, setting up the main event for tonight with Rock and Taker against Kane and Benoit, with Rock's challenger to be announced after the match, as Raw was back to its regular time slot at 9 p.m. for the first time since August 21, with a 5 rating for the Big Star Power promo segment, rebounding quickly from the last 2 weeks, with the opening quarter among the highest in weeks, even going against the larger-than-usual Nitro audience. with Rick's return crossing over 2 quarters, returning towards the end of the first into the second with an angle of him being ordered by Vince Russo to be taken out of the building. Nitro, in a rare situation after already opening stronger than usual, not only maintained but increased its viewership in the second opposed quarter with the Flair wedding segment, while only on screen for 5 minutes in a shorter appearance than expected, spiked Nitro Big to lead to the highest rated opposed half hour since January, with this segment followed by a medical update of Vince Russo after legitimately suffering another blow to the head last week from Ernest Miller's kick in the cage match, with Russo appearing on the WCW Internet show minutes after Nitro went off the air on Monday night, with him noticeably showing the effects of the hit to the head during the interview, resulting in him being taken off the road after he was originally scheduled to attend the Thunder taping a day later on Tuesday before returning for the regular creative meetings later in the week, with Raw going against the Flair segment. Russo update: and Sting vs Harris Brothers match dropped slightly to a 4.9 rating in a quarter that's usually an almost guaranteed viewership gainer, featuring a Dudleys vs Hardys tag match for a title shot at Unforgiven and the start of a Lita vs Ivory title match. With it now being made clear that Ric Flair was out of the picture and driving out of the building, the second part of the wedding angle, which saw Stacey revealing that David is not the father, saw Nitro taking a major hit, dropping around 1 million viewers, as after staying at an almost year high above the 3 rating range for the past hour, the 9:30 to 45 p.m. quarter dropped to a shallow 2.4 rating, while Raw in the direct turnover picked up approximately the same amount of viewers that Nitro dropped, jumping from a 4.9 to a 5.7 rating for a quarter, featuring the end of the Lita vs Ivory match, Kurt Angle and Mick Foley setting up 2 matches for tonight, and mainly an Eddie Guerrero Chyna segment with Eddie getting back with Chyna, followed by a tag match of Eddie and Chyna against Too Cool going 4 minutes. After the big drop in the past 15 minutes, Nitro rebounded big for the promoted Nash vs Steiner title match, with Goldberg making his first appearance of the night as the special enforcer, with Goldberg's most talked about appearance of the week coming last Wednesday in a segment with Bret Hart, opening up on the legit issue of Hart's career potentially ending due to a series of concussions suffered last December and January, as what ended up Bret's final WCW appearance was also one of his most talked about during the run, in a memorable confrontation with Goldberg that saw Steiner laying him out, with Bret responding to the praise of the segment, saying that nothing about it was acting, as he was legit feeling concussion symptoms following it while having headaches and balance issues to signal to him that he's not close to be in condition for a return to the ring. As the Nash-Steiner main event ending in a brawl with Goldberg, Booker and the Thrillers group driving a bus into the building, gained over 800,000 viewers to a 3 rating, with Nitro overall drawing its highest rated show with a 3.2 rating since Russo's final show in the first regime on January 10th, and due to increased interest on the night with more viewers per home tuning in, drew its most watched Nitro on an opposed week in a year, maintaining practically the entire unopposed viewership who sampled the show last week, and a positive sign of momentum heading into the Fall Brawl pay-per-view. With Nitro drawing one of its most impressive ratings of the year, even going against now increased sports competition to close the gap on Raw to 2.7 rating points, the closest margin between the shows on an opposed hour since the night after Starrcade on December 20, 1999. Raw had the chance to pick back up viewers who missed the show in the past 2 weeks at 11 p.m., with Nitro ending exactly at 10 without going into an overrun, crossing over the top of the hour with Triple H facing a mystery opponent which turned out to be Chris Jericho, going 5 minutes with Angle and X-Pac interfering for the finish to pick up over 1 million viewers to a 6.3 rating in the first unopposed quarter, with the second half of it followed by an Acolytes vs. Right to Censor tag match going 3 minutes. With the WWF USA Network court case delaying the massive advertising campaign planned by Viacom on the way to Raw's debut show on TNN in 2 weeks, as while the move is all but officially confirmed due to USA appealing the court decision for the move, the appeals court still didn't officially reject USA's appeal to cause further delay to the multi-million-dollar marketing campaign set for TNN, with the entire network about to be rebranded and built around Raw, with Viacom reportedly already having the TV commercials on Raw's move to TNN ready to go on the air the second they get the green light from the court decision to run it on multiple networks under its umbrella, including UPN, CBS and MTV, as besides Steve Austin's official return to the full-time schedule, the company are set to announce a loaded card for the show from next week to let the USA Network viewers know about the move on the actual Raw broadcast a week in advance, with Raw's second hour seeing its biggest spike of viewers for a full quarter coming between 10:30 to 45, with the Kurt Angle handicap match against Test and Albert going 3 minutes to a 6.5 rating, followed by a post-match angle of Stephanie getting in the way of the Kurt and Hunter brawl while getting hit several times to build to the first Angle vs. Triple H singles match on pay-per-view after months of build-up. Raw's main event entrances started a minute from the top of the hour, with Rock's entrance taking place just as the show crossed over 11 p.m., going 8 minutes in the overrun with Kane and Benoit going over, ending in a brawl with Mick Foley on commentary announcing a 4-way WWF title match for the Unforgiven pay-per-view main event in 2 weeks, with The Rock and Taker vs. Kane and Benoit tag match jumping over 900,000 viewers to peak the night with a 6.8 rating. As with Raw now expected to take a hit going against the start of the football season, Raw's second hour viewership still remained at record levels and ended up the most watched hour of the week on cable television, averaging over 8.5 million viewers to outdraw the football game on ESPN, with the main event peaking with over 9.2 million viewers, with Raw returning to its regular time slot with a 5.8 rating overall. With the last 3 weeks of strong numbers and year-high viewerships, Nitro heading to next week with momentum and big expectations to perhaps significantly capitalize on Raw's USA to TNN move, as with different hype returns of big names, angles and matches since the WWF pulled away to unreachable margins in mid-99. Next week, due to the unique situation of the top show on cable TV switching channels at the peak of its run, would be perhaps more than any other time since early '99 where things would look uncertain when numbers come out next Tuesday afternoon, with WCW coming off the Fall Brawl pay-per-view last night looking to set the stage in the build-up to next Monday. Vince Russo, coming out in a Goldberg entrance, walked to the ring next after getting involved in last night's finish that saw Steiner going over Goldberg in one of WCW's top matches of the year that matched expectations after building up to the first Goldberg vs. Steiner pay-per-view match for almost 2 years, with Russo closing the match standing over Goldberg, claiming that he ran him out of the company, while reading a letter sent to him by Goldberg saying that after losing last night he came to the conclusion that he's no longer worthy of working for an icon like Russo, leaving him no choice but to resign from WCW before introducing Steiner to the ring, with Steiner saying that now, after taking out Goldberg, the only thing left for him to do is win the world title, challenging Booker for next week in New York to bring out Jarrett and Nash, asking for the shot. Before Russo booked a tag match of Steiner and Jarrett against him and Nash, with the one getting the pinfall challenging Booker, saying that it was a lifelong dream to become champion at the Nassau Coliseum in his hometown of Long Island, New York, with this segment after again opening strong, jumping over a million viewers to a 3.4 rating. In addition to the Booker title match already announced for next week, Vince Russo, hyping the show on the WCW website, promised an even bigger match than Russo vs. Booker for the title to take place on Monday, going all out on the night, saying that they're gonna give away perhaps their biggest match possible on the show, in addition to hyping a bikini contest with Howard Stern's Whack Pack members as judges and a tag team battle royal. Not officially confirming it, but saying that starting to write the layout for Monday, he can see the Russo-Booker cage match taking place at 9 p.m. and the other match also taking place in a cage starting in the final quarter at 9:45. Nitro, coming from Kitchener, Ontario, Canada, saw unusual crowd reactions on the night, with every mention of Goldberg heavily booed after reigniting his feud with Bret Hart in the talked about segment on Thunder last Wednesday, with Russo and Steiner getting big pops when taking shots at Goldberg in their promos, closing the first hour with a David Flair interview going crazy again and the follow-up of the wedding angle, trying to find out who is the father throughout the show, with Russo when talking about the angle during the week, which saw speculation of both Russo and Ric Flair being revealed as the father, saying that if he's still in WCW for the duration of it, he's going to make the angle one of the best storylines in history, with the idea for it already laid out, including saying that unlike any other pregnancy on wrestling television before it, this time the story would end with Stacey really giving birth to a baby as opposed to a hand. Unlike previous weeks when timing the crossover to the top of the hour correctly, WCW, in a timing issue with segments either going long or short during the first hour, took a commercial break just as Raw went on the air, leading to the Booker vs. Sting entrances taking place at 9:04 p.m., going 3 minutes to end with interferences from Steiner and Jarrett before taking another break, as the mistimed commercial-heavy quarter didn't hold the audience as well as in previous weeks, despite the big title match opening with a 2.3 rating. With the final hurdle being sorted Monday afternoon, with the court rejecting USA Network's appeal, September 18 officially became the final WWF Raw show on USA to kick off a massive advertising campaign and a week of hype to build to the company's move to Viacom, with Raw set to debut on TNN next Monday in one of the biggest shows in its history, with JR just as Raw went on the air acknowledged that this is the final Raw show on the USA Network, while continuing to mention the move in every single segment of the show to notify viewers who tune in at any hour about the channel switch, as the final USA Raw started with a Stephanie Angle Triple H confrontation in the build to their first pay-per-view match, opening with a 5.1 rating. Nitro's second quarter saw the follow-up of one of the most surprising heel turns possible in the business over the past 20 years, with Jim Duggan turning heel last night to join Team Canada, getting a big ovation from the Canadian crowd while cutting a heel promo on the US crowd, who cheered for Goldberg taking him out after returning from major illness, followed by Nash taking over as the new leader and mentor of the Thrillers group to put them to the test against Kronik. As with all the buzz around next Monday's numbers between WWF and WCW with Raw's move to TNN, ECW's last show on the network would be on Friday before their deal would be cancelled to give the WWF exclusivity, with Paul Heyman in LA during the week starting negotiations with USA Network trying to potentially get them to financially invest in the company in addition to picking up the TV show in what would be a major game changer in terms of exposure. But with ECW's last show on TNN on Friday drawing a .8 rating, USA even if buying the show wouldn't likely to put it on prime time with rumors varying between late Saturday night or during the week between 10 to 12 a.m., with the deal unlikely either way as after the WWF ended its 17-year run on the network which dates back to 1983. USA already promoted movies to air during Raw's hours in an attempt to market their primetime schedule differently in hopes of keeping their #1 spot on the cable charts, which was driven mainly by Raw, as Raw's second quarter jumped over 800,000 viewers to a 5.7 rating for the continuation of the Angle Hunter-Stephanie Foley segment and a Dudley's vs. Right to Censor match. In the build-up to the main event #1 contender tag after Nash took himself out of the match, Russo went to Sting trying to get him to team up with him later tonight, stirring things up saying that Sting lost his fire and heart for the business to lead to Sting agreeing to take the spot, followed by Booker entering Russo's office just before going to the ring while in the middle Mike Awesome and Vampiro went 5 minutes in a hardcore match with Awesome going over. Rock arrived at the Allstate Arena at 9:30 p.m. with JR again emphasizing the channel switch, saying that tonight would be Rock's final appearance on USA Network on a Monday night, with Rock coming out for a promo in front of a sold-out crowd in Chicago for the company's 14th consecutive sellout in the building going back 3 years to '97, responding to being chalk-slammed through a table by Taker to close SmackDown on Thursday, calling him out for tonight, saying that he can come out in any gimmick he wants from the American Badass to the Lord of Darkness as he's gonna take him out before getting to the pay-per-view, bringing Taker out for the response saying that he was already on the road winning WWF titles when Rock was still in high school, accepting Rock's challenge before Foley was back out to hype the four-way match on Sunday, with the other two in the match and Benoit and Kane coming next with the segment picking up to a first-hour high 5.8 rating. The highest-rated opposed quarter of the night. After hovering around the 2 rating range in the last half hour, Nitro had its biggest viewership jump of the night for the final quarter with the promoted Russo and Sting vs. Steiner and Jarrett tag match for the #1 contender, which ended up with Booker taking Russo's place in the match, going 8 minutes with Russo limping to the ring for the finish, throwing a pipe to Booker to lay out Steiner and set up a Russo vs. Booker WCW title main event for the big Nitro next week, picking up over 700,000 viewers to a head-to-head peak 2.6 rating, with Nitro on the back of a strong first hour remaining above the show's recent range with a 2.8 rating heading into next Monday for what potentially can be the biggest opportunity of the year for the company to turn over a percentage of the regular Raw audience. The segment with the 4 participants in the WWF title main event on the pay-per-view saw Mick Foley coming out to book all 4 and 2 singles matches for tonight, with Chris Benoit vs. Kane coming next and Rock vs. Undertaker set to headline the show in an hour. as Kane and Benoit went 4 minutes to end with Benoit laying out Kane with the ring bell for the DQ finish, followed by the Angle Hunter and Stephanie vs. Tess Talbot and Trish 6-man tag match crossing over the top of the hour just as Nitro went off the air, jumping over 800,000 viewers unopposed into the 6 rating range with Triple H laying out Test with a pedigree for the finish, followed by an Angle vs. Hunter brawl in the final build-up on Raw for their first ever singles match, set for the blow-off match of the feud subtly built for over 9 months from Angle's first full month on television, before officially kicking off in the past few months with the roles reversed and both switching from heel to tweener roles depending on the week. With Steve Austin about to make his first live TV appearance in almost a year in addition to the planned loaded card for the show and coming off the Unforgiven pay-per-view, next Monday's Raw under normal circumstances would have expected to be at near record levels, but with the uncertainty around the channel switch and full viewership transition in addition to heavier sports competition in the fall season, predictions varied from a huge increase in viewers due to the massive mainstream commercial hype for the show to as far as WCW significantly closing the gap with Nitro picking up casual viewers who either don't get TNN on their TV package or area or simply didn't hear about the move, as while USA Network and TNN are available in a similar number of homes. The huge status difference between the networks is expected to play a role in the audience transition as USA Network in large part because of Raw is the highest rated network on cable television while TNN is hovering around the 14 to 15 place, with TNN looking to build the entire network around Raw and WWF programming to lift the channel into being a major TV player now that they have the cemented #1 show on cable, announcing immediately after the move was made official that the channel is changing its name from the Nashville Network to the National Network, starting a complete makeover and rebranding of the channel to match the WWF audience in hopes that the massive Raw viewership will carry over to other shows and lift the entire network along with it, as Raw's final hour on USA had an unusual viewership pattern with the show staying at a 6.1 rating throughout until a major turn-off commercial-heavy filler segment between 10:45 to 11 p.m. just before the main event, seeing the show going into 2 commercial breaks at the start and middle of the quarter with the only thing in the middle being Mick Foley pushing the company's political campaign to invite the presidential candidates for a debate on SmackDown, resulting in the quarter dropping to a near-show low 5.2 rating, with The Rock vs. Undertaker main event entrances taking place 2 minutes from the top of the hour to go 4 minutes in the overrun, bumping the show back around 1 million viewers in minutes to close with a 5.9 rating, seeing Taker go over Rock followed by Rock playing him out to close the show heading into a massive week for the company with one of the biggest pay-per-views and TV shows of the year coming in back-to-back nights next Sunday and Monday.
The most popular show in the history of cable television is War. And now, this weekly primetime hit is moving to TNN. Raw is War. Same night, same time. New home. TNN. Same attitude. Raw is War. Beginning this Monday night at 9, 8 Central on TNN.
Vince Russo arrived at the Nassau Coliseum for what was built as the biggest night of his career with him challenging for the title in his hometown of Long Island, New York, set to headline one of the biggest Mondays of the year and perhaps the most unpredictable night in the Monday Night War since both shows were going neck and neck in early 1999, with everybody in the industry from both companies looking to see if they either over or underestimated Raw's move from the USA Network to TNN debuting in less than an hour. Steiner and Jarrett came out next, introducing Russo as the next WCW champion in front of his hometown crowd, coming out to a mixed reaction while getting babyface pops when praising Long Island's history before turning on them, saying that his home is now in Atlanta, with Russo hyping the main event, saying that he's walking out of the Nassau Coliseum with the title, bringing up Booker and Sting on the screen, followed by Bill Goldberg coming through the crowd to return after a week out and add intrigue by signaling to viewers that Goldberg and Sting will get involved in the Russo-Booker match, with this segment gaining over 800,000 viewers to a 3.3 rating in the second quarter. Nitro continued its streak of much stronger first hours since the 2 weeks going unopposed, with the first hour tonight averaging around 4.1 million viewers to again make it an over 500,000 viewers increase over what the show was doing just a month ago during the start of August, seeing a tag team battle royal with O'Haire and Jindrak winning the tag belts, followed by a Mike Awesome vs ICP hardcore match ending up in a powerbomb on the top of the bus, while in the middle Nash as the new coach and mentor of the Thrillers group meeting Beetlejuice and the Whack Pack, with the New York crowd chanting for Scott Hall while Nash was out and throughout the night after rumors all week on him potentially returning tonight, along with Dallas Page, who returned to the ring and house show matches during the week, with WCW on the post-Nitro internet show on Monday night getting the majority of questions from callers on Hall's return. With Russo at one point during the last week saying on a WCW website interview that his match against Booker would be placed at 9 p.m. followed by an even bigger match in the final quarter. Plans were changed with the bikini contest with Howard Stern's Whack Pack as judges instead being placed as the lead into the crossover quarter just as Raw was about to go on the air on TNN for the first time, and with Russo hyping a huge match to be revealed on the show in addition to the Booker title match. The second half of the first quarter saw Goldberg attacking Steiner to set up a Goldberg vs Steiner impromptu cage match given away on TV, with Nitro's opening quarter with the bikini contest and the Steiner-Goldberg segment drawing a strong 3.1 rating, going head-to-head with Steve Austin's first TV promo in 10 months going on at the same time, resulting in the gap for the first quarter being 3.1 to 4.8 with only 1.7 rating points separating the shows, the closest margin for any segment in over 3 months. After an unprecedented media blitz from Viacom in the past 6 days with cross-promotion between 5 networks airing commercials in all hours of the day to get the word out to as many viewers as possible, the first ever Raw out of the USA Network and perhaps the most hyped show in its history in terms of mainstream media hype, opened fast with Steve Austin out first for his first Raw appearance since November '99. Kicking off a loaded show planned by the company for its TNN debut to capitalize on the buzz and maintain as much of its regular viewership despite now airing on a lower-rated network available in less homes across the country, with Austin recapping the state of the WWF in his absence while promising to go through the entire roster to find out who ran him over, bringing out Mick Foley to welcome him back while telling him to let him do the investigation, with Austin questioning that it might be Foley who did this to bring out Benoit demanding a rematch against Rock for the title, followed by Kurt Angle in a first-time interaction between Austin, Benoit and Angle, opening the first ever quarter on TNN with a 4.8 rating, its joint lowest rated opening in the past 2 months, which under normal circumstances would be a massive disappointment for Austin's return. But considering it being the first ever segment on a new network, the show opening at close to the regular opening quarters on USA Network was seen as a positive sign that a majority of the audience found Raw on TNN. Goldberg and Steiner went 5 minutes in the cage, ending up with Goldberg getting his win back from Fall Brawl, going over by escaping the cage, but with the match, which was hyped as the biggest match available currently in the company and at one point was said to headline the Starrcade pay-per-view in December, being booked on the spot with no advertising and only going 3 minutes in the quarter, with the majority of it featuring a Jarrett vs. Morris match, saw Nitro dropping big from the show high 3.1 rating to a 2.2, while Raw in the direct turnover picked up around 1 million viewers for the continuation of the Austin Foley, Benoit and Angle segment, which saw Austin laying out both with stunners to close it to a big reaction, bumping Raw to a 5.5 rating to open the gap back to the more normal viewing pattern in the second quarter, which also featured a Kane vs. Rikishi match. Sting vs. Lance Storm was next on Nitro, going 5 minutes with Sting going over, with Sting during the week doing a rare out-of-character interview talking about the recent direction of his character, including taking shots at veterans who put themselves above what was right for business, while responding to criticism of his commitment, saying that the only time he took off was in late '98 and the rest was creative decisions, closing the interview by saying that he would like to work a long-term program against Goldberg in the near future. Russo came out for the main event before the final commercial break, with him already in the ring to open the final quarter at 9:45 p.m., with the Booker vs. Russo title cage match going 9 minutes to see several twists, first with two factions blocking the cage door, followed by Sting rappelling from the roof of a building to stop Russo escaping from the top of the cage, along with two major surprise returns, with Lex Luger making his TV return for the first time since being sent home after a public creative dispute with Russo to hand him a bat to lay out Booker, followed by Ric Flair in disguise attacking Russo for what looked like the finish, with Booker having the match won before Goldberg came out, with him ending up spearing Russo through the cage just as Booker escaped in a cliffhanger finish, with the result of the match unknown, as with Russo, who was wearing a helmet part and gimmick and part as a shoot as protection, just looking to get through the match after already coming into it with concussion symptoms started in the Flair cage match in June and made worse with him taking several blows to the head in the past few weeks. The final spot of the match, with Goldberg spearing him through the cage, ended up in close to a worst-case scenario, with Russo hitting his head on the steel barricade to almost get knocked out while suffering another concussion to put his future status in question, with the Russo vs. Booker cage match going against the majority of the tag titles ladder match on Raw, gained over 800,000 viewers to bump Nitro from a 2.1 to a 2.7 rating, while Raw dropped from a 5.3 to a 4.9, resulting in Nitro increasing to a 2.9 rating overall to close the gap on Raw to an almost year low of 2.5 rating points, but far from the most optimistic expectations of it being a competitive night due to the channel switch. "24 hours after a wild cage match with all 4 participants taking major bumps, the WWF, for the special occasion on the debut show, put on what has become one of the showcases of the product, with Edge and Christian against the Hardys booked in a ladder match for the tag titles, showing no signs of slowing down despite the cage match the previous night to go all out again, with some spectacular spots for the first time in front of the wider TV audience, going 11 minutes, with the match being placed in the crossover to the top of the hour against the Russo vs. Booker Nitro main event, ending up with Edge spearing Jeff in mid-air while hanging from the belts in an all-time Raw highlight before Matt got the belts to retain, with the match which saw the final few minutes going unopposed after Nitro went off the air, Raw jumping big with over 1.6 million viewers to a 6.2 rating, gaining almost half of the WCW audience watching the finish of the main event to Raw's highest rated and most watched quarter of the night, peaking with over 8.1 million viewers, with the second half of it featuring China's Playboy magazine reveal, which debuted on Monday in a speech thanking the company and the crowd for their support during her career. One of the most surprising aspects of the WWF's move to TNN was revealed during the week, with Vince McMahon, who has an exclusivity clause with Viacom to not air any other wrestling program on the network, reportedly allowed ECW to stay on the channel in its Friday night time slot until they find and negotiate a new home for their TV, with Paul Heyman, whose scheduled final ECW show on TNN on September 22, drew a .8 rating. Responding to the comments on ECW failing to match rating expectations, again complaining about Viacom not promoting or advertising the show despite promising them crossover promotions on several high-profile shows which never took place, saying that Viacom, who originally had a 2 rating projection for ECW which they ended up doing around half, put on more promotion for this Monday's Raw in one weekend than they did for ECW in the entire year. With Raw's second hour, which featured a Jericho vs. X-Pac First Blood match and an Eddie Guerrero vs. Val Venis IC title match, along with a short Regal Austin segment just before the main event, averaged over 7.4 million viewers between 10 to 11:08 p.m., above last Monday's lower than usual 7 million viewers but way below the 8.5 million of 2 weeks ago and before it during its peak run, with anticipation to see where's the new ceiling of the show. The Rock and Benoit's main event entrances took place at 10:57 p.m. with Raw getting the same leeway it did on the USA Network, going past the top of the hour into an 8-minute overrun, as what by now gained a reputation as the guaranteed strong match of Rock vs. Benoit was put in another high-profile position to headline the first TNN Raw, jumping over 900,000 viewers to a 5.9 rating. And with one of the most anticipated rating reports of the year, with everyone in the business from both companies looking to see how much of the regular Raw audience was retained on a new network. The results, which TNN the next day sent in a press release, saw Raw drawing a 5.4 rating with over 7.1 million viewers, making it the most watched broadcast in TNN's 17-year history, with perhaps the more important point being that Raw not only maintained its viewership from USA the week before but actually increased in viewers over the 6.9 million viewers Raw drew last Monday, with the real test set to come in the next several weeks when Raw is having routine weekly shows and not being heavily pushed in a huge advertising campaign all over TV, in addition to having a massive show with the first-time return of Austin and a loaded pay-per-view caliber card.